Live stream audio test 1 2 1 2.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's the witching hour. Time to start our meeting. Good evening. Welcome, everybody, to our second meeting. I'd like to welcome you all to our face-to-face meeting. As always, there's the opportunity for people to join via Microsoft Teams. I'm not sure if anybody is doing that tonight. Do we know? Okay, not as far as we know. Nobody joining us tonight as far as we know. The agenda starts with public participation. So could I ask Steve Voller to come up, please?
Madam Chairman, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. Very briefly, a living hell. That's how one resident in Banwell describes life caused by traffic pollution, traffic noise and the ever-present danger from vehicles mounting narrow footpaths. I'm Steve Voller. I've lived in Banwell for 20 years and I'm the organiser of the Build Our Bypass campaign group. I'm standing here to express our support for the motion, which hopefully we'll be debating in a minute, to allocate additional funds for the delivery of the Banwell Bypass, which is on the agenda. There's tremendous local support for this scheme. Our Build Our Bypass petition quickly gained over 700 signatures in 2 weeks, and 70 people turned up for our action day in the village. This all confirms NSC's own surveys, which were done in 2021, which showed that 79% of respondents were in favour of a bypass for Banwell. I think we'd all rather, to be honest, this additional funding wasn't needed this evening, but unfortunately, due to the state of the economy that we find ourselves in, this scheme now faces costs which couldn't possibly have been predicted or forecasted. Construction costs are running at inflation levels greatly in excess of the level of RPI. This is particularly frustrating given that stage one of the scheme is actually forecast to come in on time and on budget. Stage two, the construction phase, is the phase that needs the additional funding which has been asked for. This scheme has a cost-benefit ratio of 2.27, which is a high rate of return based on the DFT's analysis in terms of what they use for cost-benefit analysis. So every pound of indirect North Somerset monies going into this will return 2.27 pounds back. This is a conservative figure as benefits from changes in modal transport from the scheme and the monetised benefits from junction improvements schemes have not been included. The benefits of the bypass itself in terms of placemaking, much needed traffic mitigation measures and improvements to sustainable travel measures were all accepted in March when the P&R committee gave the scheme its unanimous backing. Importantly, in terms of future housing needs, this scheme is of vital importance. It's a local strategy and has been part of the local plan since 1982. We're here this evening discussing this scheme not because the justification for it has changed, but because of the extraordinary financial pressures which face all infrastructure projects across the UK. The Council is in negotiation with Homes England for a further £12 million of funding. As the CPO inquiry this morning, it was pleasing to hear of the constructive discussions that have been taking place with Homes England to hopefully secure that additional £12 million to hopefully complement the 11.9, which you're going to be discussing later. We urge as a group and local residents, all councillors, to uphold and continue the Council's support for this scheme, given its high financial return, the economic, social and environmental benefits, and indeed its critical importance to the development of the local area. I should add a scheme in the North West has recently returned £140 million to Homes England, so hopefully this will provide a new pot for Homes England to access, thus negating and improving your negotiating ability with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think we have Pauline Trapp on the Banwell Bypass scheme as well.
Madam Chairman and councillors, thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Pauline Trapp and I've been a Banwell resident for 40 years. I taught at Churchill Academy for 16 years and I'm also a member of the Banwell Build Our Bypass scheme along with Steve. I've witnessed a significant increase in the volume of traffic, particularly over the last 10 years. Traffic congestion through the village is daily at a critical point, with a high incidence of road rage and vehicles at complete standstill. House construction has been undertaken without the necessary infrastructure. All of these issues are well documented, not least the impact on safety and health of the villagers and the school children. Traffic calming and other measures are inadequate and now outdated. The bypass has already been agreed, and it is essential for several reasons. Firstly, connectivity. A faster and more reliable strategic route is essential. This is a bigger matter than just the village of Banwell, where central and local government should be working together. Most towns have a 360-degree access. Seaside towns do not. Weston-super-Mare, along with other seaside towns, have a massive disadvantage, which inhibits transport, employment and growth, as well as impacting significantly on poverty and deprivation. The eastern arm of the route is dysfunctional, and Banwell can facilitate this route successfully by the building of the Banwell bypass, thereby bringing significant economic benefits. There are two highly relevant documents which you may have read. Firstly, the House of Lords report 2017-19. It's entitled The Future of Seaside Towns, and I quote, "Inadequate transport connectivity is holding back many coastal communities. The government should prioritise improvements to the coastal transport network when it takes decisions on planning and investment. This should be informed by a detailed review of the coastal transport network." Secondly, in 2021, the Chief Medical Officer's report cites overlooked issues in seaside towns. Coastal towns share issues, he says, which include poor housing and transport connections, and that's from Chris Whitty's report. So a bypass in Banwell is essential. It is necessary to increase the flow of the high volume of traffic and improve access to Weston and Banwell, to promote health and well-being of the villagers by enabling better public spaces within and around the village, to create significant non-motorised networks, including cycleways, footways, etc. And you notice on the RAG rating, it has a very high value for money, with employment and economy at the centre. Therefore, there are significant and necessary benefits to the local area, and not just Banwell. If the Banwell bypass is not implemented, the risks are far too great, and we need to go on to stage 2, the construction of the bypass. So let's deliver on what has already been deemed essential by providing the funding, and let's get things moving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, councillors. For those who don't know who I am, I'm Ros Willis and I'm a resident of Ashbury Drive, Weston-super-Mare. I retired as a North Somerset councillor and a Weston Town councillor after 20 years' service in May due to family and health reasons. I have actually served as the North Somerset chairman and the mayor of Weston-super-Mare, and as a North Somerset Scrutiny chair and vice chair. So I know how local government work and I fully understand budgets and grants. Must say I didn't expect to be here after 2 months after I retired, but you've all been very naughty with my bus service again, so I'm here. I'm sorry, thorn in your side. I am and have been a family informal carer since I was 8 years old. There wasn't much support back then, but at least that's improved now. But many older carers lose the ability to own and run a vehicle, either because the partner cared for can't now drive, or finance means a car is not viable or possible. So a bus service is a lifeline. Myself, as have many others, made the decision some years ago to plan for these golden years. We moved to a town area, not rural, because we were assured by transport companies that we would have a bus and train service and access to them. I can see Weston Town Centre from my garden. I hear the trains, I even hear the music from Grove Park and Tropicana events, but I can't access transport from the Milton-Wilbury hillside where I live. The area of Milton Hillside, if you don't know, in Wilbury, is one of the highest in the North Somerset area, along with Bristol Airport Height, Uphill, and I am sure many other names that some of you councillors may like to add. Older residents on Ashbury Drive and Wilbury now, and when the service ceases, number 50, cannot now get into access doctors, hospitals, banks, post office and shops. Wilbury can use it, but Ashbury Drive have lost that ability. You want to revitalise your town of Weston-super-Mare, so where is the help to the isolated and forgotten older generation who, quite frankly, have the spending power to help the high street? As a carer, I know the importance of respite, and being able to take a bus into town for a cup of tea and see another human face just for a couple of hours is as good as a 2-week holiday. Believe me, I know, because I've been there in that situation in the past. The older generation are being discriminated against in an electronic world. Yes, it's a small percentage of them, but not everyone wants to be connected at all times to a computer phone and have no desire to learn. We must recognise that and not penalise them or forget them. So we have Westlink, the green bus, as we call it. Without a mobile to use the app, it has been so far an impossible task by my husband, who doesn't use a mobile, to get an answer on the 0117 number. Even this morning I tried. I tried to book the bus to come down this evening. Mr. Willis has tried. I can assure you. It's 10 minutes waiting with the music. Clonk, you cut off. That's it. End of. Try again. Finally, I do not understand how our previous bus service, which was run by community transport, had to be taken away. We were told, as the ward councillors, and I quote, "The bus was too small at 16 seats. The service is the busiest in the whole of North Somerset and therefore needs to go commercial," unquote. Commercial has failed us too many times now. Please ensure a proper debate. And also please find solutions, because on the hillside, we're not going to be able to get out at all. We can't walk up and down the hill with shopping. I can't walk up the hill without any shopping, let alone my neighbour 94 opposite me used to come every day into town just to get out and see someone. So thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Ros. Apologies for absence.
Madam Chairperson, I've had apologies in advance from Councillors Bird, Hogg, Charles, Caniford and Crockford-Hawley.
Are there any other apologies not yet noted?
I think Councillor Nicholson has unexpectedly been delayed. He may make it to the meeting, but unfortunately his work has made it impossible for him to make it at the start.
Thank you. Sorry. Catherine?
Just to say that Councillor Parker will be arriving late.
Thank you. Any others?
While we're talking about absences, John Crockford Hawley did send me a message from France saying he's going to be missing us all and he's sorry he can't be here. He was by the pool at the time.
I'll sort him out later. Thank you. Any declaration of disposable pecuniary interests? No? Thank you. Now we come to the minutes of the last meeting. Councillor Bell, Mike Bell, you moving them?
Yes.
All approved? We didn't have a seconder, but never mind. Councillor Gibbons will second. Thank you. All approved. Thank you very much. Banwell bypass. We've had two speakers talking about the Banwell bypass. I think, Councillor Bell, you're going to introduce this.
I am, yes, and apologies, I was distracted there by the messages from my son, which has been going on for some time about the smoke alarm going off in the kitchen. So this is what happens when you leave a 13-year-old in charge of the cooking, isn't it, in your absence? Okay, I'm pleased to move the recommendations in the report on the Banwell bypass, and I'll look for a seconder immediately just to move things along. Very good, thank you, Councillor Keating. So obviously, firstly, it's important to reflect, and I should say thank you very much to the two public speakers who both made lots of really good points, so Steve and Pauline, and I apologise that I might repeat some of the excellent points that they made during public participation. The Banwell bypass is a really critical report, a landmark project for us as a council. The CPO inquiry, the compulsory purchase order inquiry, commenced today on the Grand Pier and is progressing well. And we're well into the design phase of the Banwell bypass project. As we heard during public participation, stage one of the project is on track and well within budget, which is really positive and demonstrates the hard work of the project team that's gone on so far. However, as the report makes clear, the construction and design costs have risen as a direct result of things that have happened, events, as they're often referred to. The project was conceived and the budget framework was set back in 2018-2019, and of course, as we all know, since then, we've had the COVID pandemic, we've had the Ukraine war, we've had the cost of living crisis, we've had inflationary pressures, we've had Liz Truss's government, all kinds of things that have come along that with the best will in the world could not have been predicted, could not have been forecast. Even Liz Truss could not have been predicted back in 2018-19. And that has led to some significant inflationary pressures on the budget. The report makes clear that we're looking at costs outside of our control in some areas that have risen between 35% and 50%. So some real financial challenges. And it's worth noting, by the way, that on the day we received the funds in late 2019, we were already into a potential financial shortfall. So even in the 6 months between the government announcing the green light for the scheme and actually letting us have the money, we were already into a situation where there were significant cost pressures. So this is not new. This is something that's been building up over a number of years. As I mentioned, the project team leading this project have been doing a great job making sure that we carried on with the project, doing the detailed work, thinking about ways that we could mitigate and manage cost pressures, and we will obviously continue to do that. And I'm optimistic that we will find other ways to further mitigate the cost pressures that we are experiencing. But the bottom line is, if we want to deliver this project and address some of those issues that the public speakers spoke about at the beginning, we do need to make sure that this budget shortfall is made up. So we've been in some very positive and constructive conversations with Homes England, who are the original funders of the Housing Infrastructure Fund that the bypass is funded from, and I am confident that they will support us in part with some of the costs. But what we do need to do through this report tonight is ask the Council to identify some extra capital resources in the order of 11.9 million to help us to meet that shortfall. The report identifies how we will fund this additional capital, including from community infrastructure levy, from regeneration funds, and by reallocating some of our capital reserves. We heard from the public speakers how critically important this project is for the village of Banwell, but it's not only about delivering action and answers on this long-standing local transport issue, but it also will unlock significant economic development, provide access to sites which will enable us to deliver new homes, new schools and other new facilities, and it will help to make Banwell, of course, a safer and cleaner place. I hope that the Council will endorse this recommendation and enable us to press on with the construction at the earliest opportunity, subject to the financial agreements with Homes England and the Government, and subject, of course, to the conclusion of the CPO inquiry that's taking place at the moment. I just want to also offer the assurance that despite these financial pressures and despite the work that the team are doing to try and mitigate those pressures, we're absolutely committed to delivering on all of the commitments that were made during the planning application process. So that's particularly around some of those improvements to footways and cycleways and public realm works, both in Banwell and in neighbouring villages, to make sure that the project is not just delivered on time and hopefully within the parameters of this new budget envelope, but also makes a significant positive contribution to Banwell and to the surrounding community for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have questions? Councillor Ashton, and then I shall have to rely on this from you.
Thank you. Is that on? Mike, I totally understand the inflation since 2019, but assuming this gets a go-ahead, we're almost in a position where we can't afford not to do it, we can't afford to carry on, and that's always difficulty. These things take so long. Are you in a position that if you get the go-ahead tonight, you can actually fix the price and get on with it? Because inflation is rampant, and construction is even greater than the normal rate of inflation at the moment. So can you fix it? That is quite important to whether or not you go ahead.
Thank you. I'll answer that question, if helpful, Councillor Ashton. Okay, so it's a mixed response, I'm afraid. We won't be able to fully fix the budget because we don't have full contract prices through for every element of the scheme. So the budget that is presented today is the latest cost estimates following a significant procurement process for the build elements, but that's not for every single one of the items within the budget. So there is still some risk exposure. However, we hold contingency within the latest forecast for that. So I can't give complete reassurance.
Sorry, can I just come back on it? You still haven't got fixed prices for things you know at the moment?
We have a fixed price for the major construction programme, but some of that hasn't yet been finalised in terms of the design and scope.
Okay, but there must be some overall contingency for movements at the last moment.
Yes, there is.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Go on.
Yes, as a local man and growing up in this area, like many other people, I've seen Banwell bypass as something that we've aspired to for a long time. And I just want to endorse everything that was said by the speakers and say this is an opportunity we can't let slip through our fingers. Anybody that has to go out through Banwell and use that road will see what a misery it can be with the congestion, etc. And this is an opportunity that we really can't afford to slip through our fingers. So I'm hoping that we can put together the financial deal we need.
Thank you. Councillor Keating, Patrick?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You referenced that the funding for the wider countermeasures would be protected, which I think would be very much appreciated by residents in Churchill and the surrounding areas. But can you also clarify that those countermeasures would be in place before the opening of the bypass in order to mitigate any issues, or is there a risk to that given the challenges we're facing?
Is that you, Mike? Right, okay. I think we have Councillor Bridger.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I wholeheartedly support the report recommendations for this, what I think is an in principle additional contribution, isn't it, of 11.9 million. As Katie Park said, Katie, in your who project manages the bypass project, as Katie said in her evidence in the opening day of the CPO inquiry this morning, the Banwell bypass has been proposed since 1927. So if we follow through on this, it will be almost exactly 100 years since people were first talking about it. So I think this really is our last best chance to follow through on this project. I think in the report it talks about obviously contractual default. I think that sounds rather probably more dramatic than I think it probably is, given that the council has been working sort of continuously and collaboratively with Homes England throughout this project. And I would like to sort of add my thanks to the team. I think that the process has been managed impeccably throughout. We have a great sort of officer and wider consultant team working on this project, and there's been really good elected member oversight throughout as well. I do hope Homes England will agree to stump up the 12 million to make up the shortfall. From what I think will probably be a smaller HIF program nationally, because I think DFT have done an audit of the HIF program as a whole, and I think we're in a good position. I think we're well ahead of the pack. I think rightly there is more scrutiny now nationally of the road building program. I think that's right. But I think we've always made clear in this project is much more than simply a road. So I hope that if council approves the ask of it this evening and then follows through with the stage 2 approval later in the year, that we can crack on and start early on that highways and ecological mitigation that Councillor Keating mentioned in his comments as well, so that communities can actually really begin to see the benefit of the project as a whole. So I wholeheartedly support the report recommendations.
Thank you, Steve. Pepperell, I keep turning this thing on and off, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I was delighted when I found that Banwell was going to get a bypass, and it certainly is very, very much needed. Then I was really disappointed because I found that actually, as a lot of people do, if you're going from Weston to Winscombe, it's not much use.
Thank you for that. That's all, everybody who has something to say and some comment. Would you like to sum up, Mike?
Yes, thank you. Thanks very much, and lots of useful comments. So, I mean, firstly, just to assure Councillor Keating, absolutely the intention is to do things in the right order and make sure that we get those wider mitigations in place up front. I'm confusing the cameraman by standing up, look. I think the only assurance, just to add to what Amy Webb was saying, Councillor Ashton, I think the only assurance I can give you is really that the best protection that we've got in terms of mitigating these challenges around the costs is to get on with it. So we're doing everything that we possibly can to secure the agreements with the government and Homes England, obviously get the funding in place, get the CPO approvals as quickly as we can. And I understand that the first day's presentations have gone very well, and hopefully get on site, spades in the ground, and get on with it as quickly as we can. We're really committed to delivering this project. We've heard about how important it is. This has had long-term cross-party support, and I hope that we'll support this recommendation this evening and enable and empower our officers to get on and deliver.
Thank you very much. So I think all those in favour, please, of the recommendations. I think that's unanimous. Any against? Any abstentions? It is unanimous. Thank you. No petitions being presented by members tonight. There are no motions by members. So now we have question time. Can I remind members, please say who you are asking the question of. Please give a brief 30-second narrative about your question, and then we will let the appropriate executive member answer the question. A follow-up question is permitted, but we want to be efficient, and we want to be precise, and we want to let everybody have a chance to ask a question. So, questions then. I have no idea who went first. Councillor Keating, Patrick.
Thank you very much. A question to Councillor Gibbons, if I may. Could you please give us a quick update on where we stand with the Department for Education's application for a special school in Churchill?
Certainly. I'm not sure. Should I stand up or sit down? I'll sit down.
Do whatever you like. But just don't leave the room.
Sorry? No, I won't until I finish speaking. Well, just to add some context, it does seem a long while since the land for this special school was signed off for the Department of Education back in 2018, before I came into this role. But obviously, I was very pleased that we had won that bid and that Department for Education were planning to build this much-needed school. But we are still waiting for the Department for Education to submit their application. I believe the latest information I have is that it should be going to Planning Committee in September, having sorted out various issues that obviously are part and parcel of getting it ready for planning. And obviously, we await that decision. We are not the applicants as the council, that is the Department for Education, and it will go through the due process, as Councillor Keating and I know. So any further questions or supplementary? Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thornton, where are you?
Thanks. This is a question for Councillor Solomon. Given the absence of John Crockford-Hawley, I thought I'd channel him here and basically ask you a question of, if you can provide us with an update on Western Odeon Cinema, please.
Thank you.
I'm going to bat that one off to the leader, because I believe he has got the latest information, if I may.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Sorry, Helen. Yes, so obviously we raised this issue at the last council meeting, and as I said at the last council meeting, so I wrote to the Odeon on behalf of the council as soon as we knew about the closure plans. I had a very positive meeting actually with the Odeon a few weeks ago, and they confirmed obviously their intention to sell the site and close it, and I assured them of the council's interest and commitment to working with them to try and secure a sustainable future for the building. The latest information I have is that the Odeon are in the process of negotiating a sale to another cinema operator, and that's just in the process of concluding at the moment. So I'm optimistic that we will see the Odeon, the former Odeon, reopen fairly soon as it staying in cinema use.
That's very good news. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's for Hannah Young's Highways. About the bus lane on the A370 Long Ashton bypass. Many people on the doorstep raised the issue. They haven't seen any buses or any 1 in 2 buses going up and down the bus lane while cars are sat there queuing. This doesn't sound like it's actually helping reduce climate change, but potentially adding to it if you've got cars queuing up. Will this be looked at, for example, a time-limited bus lane rather than 24/7?
Thank you. The purpose of the bus lane on the A370 was to ensure that we could have a reliable bus service along that route. So I do hope that the buses are progressing quickly along it and that you don't see them stopped and waiting there. I've had a number of queries regarding whether this should be a temporary, time-limited bus lane or one that operates 24/7, and that has been explored by the team. we actually find that the Department of Transport, the Minister actually has fed back to a local MP who raised this with them, that actually the government's national bus strategy, Bus Back Better, recommends that bus lanes should be full-time and as continuous as possible. They should be part of a whole corridor approach, including other physical measures, such as traffic signal priority bus gates and other similar things, clear and consistent signage. So we're following the national guidance on that, and we are keeping a close eye on the project. So I will continue to do that with the team and to make sure that we understand the impact. But it is early days, and I would ask people to bear with us and also to try the bus.
Thank you very much. Obviously, we just know it's not a government criteria. It must be 24/7. So if you could maintain and monitor it, that would be great, because at the moment it sounds like it's potentially creating more pollution rather than less.
I would dispute that it's not government criteria. That is the criteria that we're following.
Sorry, I meant not criteria. It was stipulated. It wasn't actually stipulated. It must be 24/7.
It's stipulated by the implication of the bus service, the Bus Back Better strategy, and we've clarified that with the Department for Transport, as has a local MP, and that is the response that we've been given.
And the response from the local MP we've received is from the Ministry of...
I think we've had our follow-up, thank you. If you want to go back on the bottom of the list, I'll put you there. But we have Councillor Malayan, you're here. You've arrived. Are you asking a question?
I have a hunch it might be me. Do my arms look the same?
Oh, it was your arm. Okay. Sorry. Councillor Cromley.
Apologies for offending you, Hugh. So my question, I think, probably for Hannah Young. So we've all heard the absurd plans to close the face-to-face ticket offices in our local stations, and I know whatever colour you are, many of us are angry about that. So I know the council aren't responsible for trains. I get that, but what can the council do or is considering doing to try and show our anger and frustration at that? You know, are we prepared to meet GWR? Are we prepared to write? And what's our plan?
Mike, is that you to answer? Hannah? Sorry.
Yes, thank you. And you're right, there has been considerable concern generated by this proposal. It's under active consultation at the moment, and what I'm doing is liaising with the WECA leads for this area too. We will absolutely be responding to the consultation on the basis of the feedback we've received. Bus ticket offices, sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm on the last question. Train ticket offices, thank you, are obviously critical to a whole range of users, and there are all sorts of issues that have already been raised with me about people who would be disadvantaged if they were to go. We also know that there are real concerns about the impact they would have on the lack of informal surveillance in areas that tend to be quite difficult for some people to be in at certain times of the day or night. Just as we've lost various wardens around our towns, and we find that that has a wider impact on public behaviour, these are equally important. So I'm very happy. I will be responding to the consultation, potentially together with WECA colleagues, but I'm certainly happy to request a meeting with GWR or with the rail delivery group who are running the consultation in order to be able to put those concerns more strongly. And I'd encourage anyone who has any further concerns to contact me direct, and I'm happy to feed that through.
Thank you, thank you. I know the Yatton people are very upset about the thought. No follow-up?
No, you're fine.
Thank you. I forgot to say, could you please let the solicitor have your question if you haven't already sent it in for the minutes? Thank you very much. Councillor Payne.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask a question of the leader. We had some really great weather in June, and it was great to see a large number of visitors come to enjoy Western Seafront. But unfortunately, we don't seem to be able to get to grips with the management of waste in times when we have a large influx of visitors. We have overflowing bins and waste that's just abandoned where people were sitting, which is regularly left overnight to be scattered by animals and ending up in the sea often. I appreciate that it's a really difficult problem to solve. Ideally, we would like people to generate less waste and to deal with it responsibly. But do you agree with me that we need to manage this better, and that that as a council we need to get to grips with this problem once and for all?
Thank you. Who's answering that?
I'm going to.
Excellent.
Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Good. First of all, can I just advise everyone that the smoke is clearing in the kitchen? So hopefully the house is still standing, but the smoke is clearing in the kitchen. I really thank you for the question, Robert. I agree with you. I think we know that this has been an issue for many years, and I guess the only area where I slightly disagree is I'm not sure we'll ever solve it, because, of course, the fundamental issue is human behaviour, isn't it? And how we change human behaviours so that they respect the environment and respect each other, I think is probably somewhat beyond the remit of the council, but we'll do our best. But what I can say is that with Councillor Solomon as the exec member for Seafronts and Councillor Waite as the exec member for Waste, we have been working with officers to try and address some of those challenges that you've articulated in terms of the seafront. And we have been able to put in some extra resources for the summer peak season. So that will include waste collections later into the evening, better weekend coverage. And by the way, this is not just for Weston-super-Mare seafront, but also for Clevedon and Portishead seafronts as well, so that we can make sure that we do a better job for visitors and residents in our busy seafront areas. But beyond that, we will also be looking to see what more we can do around enforcement and behaviour change, signage, and also really just sending a much more positive message and a different message about the things that we want people to do when they're visiting and enjoying our seafront areas. And we'll be really keen to work with local members to further develop that over time, and we'll also look to see what we can do as part of the MTFP process, so the budget setting process for future years, so that we can perhaps rebase this and make sure that we're in the strongest possible shape to meet the needs of the community.
Thank you for that. Councillor Williams.
My question is for Councillor Clayton. It's about Wilby Woods or Western Woods. There's been lots of antisocial behaviour out there recently, with people setting fires, pulling tree saps up and setting fire to them, benches and stuff. Residents are really concerned with everything up there. A fire was recently left unattended all overnight as well, so it came quite close that we could have lost part of the woods. Are you able to work with myself and residents to possibly look at public space protection orders over the woods, or some things we can do to try and sort of get on top of that antisocial behaviour?
I'm sorry, I missed who you were directing the question to.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Councillor Williams, and I know we have spoke about it privately before tonight. 100% I'm willing to work with you. I have informed officers of the antisocial behaviour up at Welbury Woods. It is something that we are going to be looking to address and get some patrols up there by our community response officers. So any more intelligence that you have in relation to ASB, I would encourage yourself and residents to report on Street Safe, because that is an app that will pinpoint antisocial behaviour and direct not just our officers but also the police in relation to antisocial behaviour. So definitely encourage people to report it, because then that will give a mechanism to us as a council and also the police that extra patrols are needed for the woods up in Welbury. But yes, please open up a dialogue with me and we'll look to work together on that.
Thank you for that. I think we finished question time. Oh, no, we haven't. Have we got those people? So could you raise your hands again? The little list was empty at that moment in time. So Councillor Pilgrim next. Lisa?
Thanks, Wendy. I'm going to try and be 30 seconds, but I think it might be a little bit longer. So, it's my question, or my point is to Mike Solomon, Councillor Solomon. So, firstly, I really recommend the improvements that we've made for residents in accessing council services through the libraries. It's vital for those of residents who aren't so technologically able as others. However, I feel that this promotion needs to be, we need to promote it a bit more, because it needs to be improved upon, because some residents still aren't aware that they can go into each individual library. The example I had, I think I raised at Ash, where a lady was recently widowed, and she came into the town hall to try and adjust her council tax, to be told to go away, go home and do it online. So I would really like it if we could promote the fact that they can go into libraries and get assistance in a way that is other than online, and also if we could improve the service so that in similar circumstances further residents can receive the face-to-face help that they actually need.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Councillor Pilgrim. Yes, I can certainly bring this up with the libraries team in response to your request for making it clearer for people that the service is available. So that's something I can talk to the team about, our best ways to let people know about it. In terms of additional resources, we're already struggling and having to make certain cuts. So I can't promise extra resources, but I will talk to the library team.
Another one, Lisa, follow up?
Yeah, I'm not thinking that it will necessarily be extra resources, just that, I mean, for example, the library in my ward, Whirl, is absolutely superb. And I know that the ladies in there would be more than happy to have assisted in this particular circumstance. So I'm not sure that we need to put a lot more resources in, just allow the people that are there to assist in a similar case. I mean, you know, we really have an obligation, I think, to our more vulnerable residents.
Okay, thank you. I'll take that point up with them as well.
Thank you then. Councillor Petty? Bridget?
Thank you. I think that one of my, well, the crux of my question is actually I'm not sure which executive member is responsible. So I liked your instructions at the beginning, Councillor Grigg, but that was my point in my question. The A38 major road network scheme has been on the agenda for a number of years, and I saw on the forward plan that the decision had been postponed on one aspect of it. But my question to the executive, it could be the leader or other, is who is the current executive member with responsibility for the A38 major road network scheme? Because it's a significantly smaller scheme than that of the Banwell bypass, but a number of us, including Councillor Keating and others, have kind of had an eye on, is it going to do what it said it was going to do for our communities, etc. So I was just keen to ensure that we were clear on which portfolio lead would be the point of contact for that.
I think that's you, Hannah.
Well done. I think it's me too. And all I will say is that unless we've heard something in the last couple of weeks that I've not yet been told about, we had not yet received the final decision on funding of the scheme. So I raised that issue at the Western Gateway Strategic Transport Board when I saw the Department for Transport representative there. And they were not clear about when those decisions would be taken. At some point we were told that it would be around this time in July. It sounded as if it was going to be more like September. So I push and await a further understanding of where we are with that. And I imagine that that is why the forward plan has shown that those items have been taken off at this point. But I'm very happy to keep an eye on that for you.
I think my follow-up would be just that kind of keeping other councillors who are ward councillors based along that stretch, which is a fair stretch of the A38, that they're kept in the loop in a kind of respectful manner so they can contribute in a timely manner to ensure that it benefits our communities. Thank you.
Very happy to do that for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This question is for Councillor Young. The council has recently inserted what it is referring to as 2 parklets on Hill Road in Clevedon. Did she consult with local residents and businesses before they were built?
Over to you, Councillor Young.
Yes, there was consultation. The parklets are actually licensed to the businesses, so it's for businesses to come to the council and ask if they want to take advantage of that, and that was part of the original consultation on the public realm scheme. There was more recently a session which took place with the traders of Hill Road, Bellevue Road and Alexandra Road, and the majority of traders in those roads said that they welcomed parklets, and 3 businesses put forward requests to have them licensed. 2 are being installed currently, as you've noted, and we've put some further information out today to let people know what's happening. We did consider, given the review going on at the moment of the whole public realm scheme, whether that was appropriate at this time, but had representations from the businesses involved that they had built their financial models for the summer over the opportunity to license those areas, and so would be very concerned about the economic impact on them individually. I'd also like to say that there have been, I know, some suggestions raised that actually this will be another issue around parking in Hill Road, and what has been done is for the spaces that have been lost on Hill Road to the parklets, additional spaces have been provided in the Herbert Road and Hill Road areas further up. So we have listened to those concerns, taken them into account, and tried to make sure that we are supporting those businesses for their summer trade.
If I can have a follow-up, please. You've mentioned about engagement there with residents. Why was it that I, as the ward councillor, and also a number of residents of mine, only found out that you were holding a public meeting about Clevedon Seafront from Facebook?
I will give my personal apologies for that, Councillor Pryke. I've certainly been pushing to make sure that arrangements for the public meeting were available as soon as possible in order to give people the maximum opportunity to plan their diaries around it. I know on the communications plan you certainly appeared as ward councillors, and if there's been an error in the timing of that taking place, then I do apologise to you, and of course you will be closely involved in all of those aspects, and I will make sure personally that in future you receive that in advance of residents and others.
Thank you. And Councillor Smith, I think you've got another one on the Clevedon Seafront.
That's correct. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is again to Highways about the seafront. In the update in the middle of June that was emailed to us, it was said that the one-way system was being ignored by motorists and cyclists, that people were parking in the wrong places, such as loading bays or outside of marked areas. I would say that's probably because the road markings were unrecognised. So the only conclusion I read from that update is that this scheme has completely failed. So in that vein, will this council conduct a postal survey to Clevedon residents so that their voice will actually be heard about the future of the seafront?
Over to you, Hannah.
It's busy tonight, isn't it? As you will know, there is a public meeting as requested by the people of Clevedon on the 20th of July at 7 p.m. The purpose of that public meeting and the work that's been put around it is to inform residents about what will happen next, and obviously those other interested stakeholders, and that will include our discussion of how we intend to engage with residents over the summer. We have been working to appoint independent consultants to do that. So how they go about that is likely to, we know that it will include a mix of methods. I'm not going to sit here and say that definitely will include a survey of all of the residents in Clevedon, because that is not for me to determine at this stage. We've put together a specification which asks them to come back with proposals about how that engagement takes place. And I've also asked them to, through that specification, to make sure that specific groups have a genuine opportunity through mixed methods, not merely public meetings, to contribute to that review. It's absolutely my intention, and I've said many times before that I want to get the widest possible involvement of people in Clevedon to have their say, so that we can come to an appropriate conclusion on the basis of the evidence that is provided and of the other evidence that is being gathered pretty much as we speak. In terms of the scheme being a failure, I would dispute that at this stage. I'm really waiting to hear the results of the independent review, the results of the Active Travel England visit, which took place a couple of weeks ago. That report will be available in the next month, we hope. The safety audit, which is taking place either this week or next, and the independent audit. I have no doubt that there are lessons to be learned and potentially changes to be made, and we have not limited the scope of the review to avoid any options. If there is a case for reversal of the scheme, then the consultants will be asked to look at that, and that's within the specification that will be shared. I realise we'll need to move on, but I would also like to take the opportunity to say, to support the work that we're doing currently. There is a page which is being put together on the North Somerset Council website, which will include all of the information about the review, We will share the project brief, we will share the specification, and we will share whatever we can to give the public reassurance that we are looking at this issue seriously.
Thank you for that very detailed response. Pepperell, I think you're the last question.
Thank you. Mine's about fly tipping, and I have to admit I'm not sure who that goes to.
Is it you?
Okay.
Is it enforcement?
Councillor Solomon. Thank you. I realise that clearing fly tipping must be very expensive, must cost the council quite a lot, which leads you to think there's an argument for dropping all charges at the tip so that we don't get so much fly tipping. Meanwhile, anyway, that's not my question. British Telecom have a telephone exchange in my ward, and it's set behind St Mark's Church on the Queensway. And unfortunately, the church have a disabled parking space, and if anyone backs into that, they're very close to this telephone exchange fence, which is about 8-foot high metal fence.
Could I ask what your question is?
Well, a lot of fly tippers are using this site, of tipping the stuff into British Telecom land, and recently British Telecom have had to spend £5,000 clearing it. And I just wondered how the council feels about that, you know, if there's anything we should be doing to prevent that.
Yeah, it's private land. However, our enforcement team, which unfortunately consists of one officer that has to look at all the fly tipping issues, and it's something that's a real problem. Because it's private land, then it is up to BT to police that, not for our enforcement.
I think that's question time over. Thank you for your questions. Could I remind you, please, if you can write your question and email it to the solicitor for the minutes. That would be very, very helpful. Moving on. Matters referred from previous meeting, none. Chairperson's announcement. You've got to hear me a bit longer. I was delighted to go to Blagdon Primary School to help them celebrate receiving the School of Sanctuary Award for the school. One of the few schools in North Somerset that have received it. That was a delight. It's a recognition of the way they welcome refugees and other people who've had to flee from countries and come and settle in our country. They've got the award. It's wonderful. I would like to give a huge thanks and congratulate the staff of Yatton Infant School, who have worked with their partners, with the local primary schools, St Andrew's School and Chestnut Park School, and put in such an inspirational plan to enable their children to carry on being educated in a caring and nurtured way this half term after the devastating fire at Yatton Infant School. The staff are already doing a bit blue sky thinking about the new school that will be built next year. And I had great fun blowing a whistle and kicking a football to start a walking football tournament in the Clevehan Stadium. And I noticed from all the literature adverts that are around and the publications, there are loads and loads of events going on in North Somerset, all around North Somerset. Some are fundraising, some are just for fun. And I do encourage members, if you've got an event going on in your ward, a flower show, a beer festival, whatever it may be, to show your support for your residents in your ward. I know they would appreciate it. That's me done. Leader's announcement. Chief Executive's announcement.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to recognise Sheila Smith's retirement, which is happening at the end of this month. I know she doesn't really like the word retirement, but we couldn't let the occasion go unmarked. So I would ask Sheila if she'd like to come forward to receive some flowers on behalf of all the councillors here in the chamber and officers.
Thank you very much. It was completely unexpected, and thank you for the sunflowers in particular. That may make me remind myself of you all when I'm sat at home on future council evenings. So thank you very much to all of you. To those of you who are still around who appointed me all those years ago and had confidence, thank you for that. I hope it wasn't misplaced. And I'd just like to say we've worked through some difficult challenges, but actually we've done well. So, and I'm sure you'll continue through the next suite of challenging times, and I look forward to watching from a distance. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. The forward plan, Councillor Bell, Mike? Noting.
Just move that it be noted, Chair.
Do we have a vote? Right, the forward plan noted then. Thank you very much. Policy and Scrutiny Panel report, none. Reports referred from the Executive, none. Reports referred from Policy and Overview and Scrutiny Panel, none. And we come to the report of the Independent Remuneration Panel on members' allowances. And I believe we have the chairman of the panel joining us on Teams. Is that right?
Yes.
That made me jump. Good evening, and good of you to join us.
Not at all.
It's your last time on the panel.
It is indeed, yes.
And you've been with us for many years.
Yes, I signed on for 3 years, many years ago. But I've decided that now is the time that really I should practice what I preach and make way for somebody younger.
I don't think I introduced you. So this is David McFarlane, who's been with us for many years. I'd like to express our thanks for all his work for us on the allowance panel, and good luck in your retirement.
Second retirement, I would guess. Yes,
Second
thank you.
retirement. Thank you very much. So moving on to the report, I think, Nick, you're going to introduce it.
Indeed, Chairperson. So the report is before you. You have a covering report from me giving you your options, which is effectively to accept the recommendations from the panel, to accept the recommendations with any amendments you may choose, or to refer matters back to the panel if you don't agree with the recommendations. But in that eventuality, you should be feeding back to the panel what your concerns are and what you would like them to reconsider. In essence, as I say, the report is there. David has joined you this evening if there are any points of clarification you would like. And the focus of the report, I think it's fair to say on this occasion, is certainly as far as the basic allowance goes, to put allowances into the position they would be had the panel's recommendations on previous occasions for other reasons not been accepted in years gone by. So the bottom line is that they're trying to reinstate the basic allowance to the rate you would have had you accepted previous recommendations. They're not suggesting any amendments to the SRAs.
Thank you. I think, Mike, you're going to speak to this.
Yes, thank you. And I would just echo the comments that have been made for David's hard work over many years, but also the work of the entire panel in considering this issue for us. Obviously, we all know that this is a both politically and personally sensitive issue, and there's never a good time to address this issue. But I think, as the report makes clear, it's been 7 years since we implemented the independent panel's recommendations, and as a consequence of that, we continue to fall further behind their recommendations, but also further behind comparator authorities. So there does come a point when you have to grasp the nettle and address the issues, because unfortunately, the longer we put it off, the more difficult it becomes to address. I think it's important to reflect on the fact that the purpose of having an independent panel is to have a group of people who can dispassionately look at the evidence, who can consider the information that is put forward by members about the roles and responsibilities that they have, and can also look at the trends and comparisons with similar authorities around the country, and that's exactly what the panel have sought to do in this report. My view is that there comes a point when we have to make a decision, and I believe we should be recognising and respecting the recommendations of the independent panel. So my proposal, which I'll ask you to support, is that we do implement the recommendations for changes to the allowances scheme as set out in the report by the independent remuneration panel, save that we should implement them over 2 years, which was indicated as a possibility in the report. And I'd look for a seconder for that.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Gibbons, Catherine Gibbons. So we have a seconder. Do we have any questions about this? Oops, Councillor Ashton.
Thank you, Chairman. Mike, you're right. It's always difficult for us to discuss this, which is why a few years ago, I believe we tied it to the rate of increase that was awarded to the staff, which sort of took it out of our hands, because we went to an independent advisor to take it out of our hands, but then we ended up having to vote for or against the independent advisor's results, so it didn't really achieve very much. Could we not put it back to actually we tie it in with what the staff get? It may be a bit difficult on occasions if there's a reason to adjust staff wages because it's out of kilter or whatever. I just think that 10-20% going through at the moment is going to be even more controversial than it would normally be. I agree with your proposal we go to option 2 at least. But in the future, to avoid this, could we not again tie it to what is awarded to the overall, not the exceptional cases, but the overall award to the staff?
Mike?
So yes, just for clarity, it's worth commenting on that immediately. So that is the case. So since 2016, the allowances have been linked to the staff pay award, and that will continue to be the case going forward. I think the issue that the report is looking to address is that we did not accept the recommendations back in 2016, and as a result, we're just out of kilter. So hopefully by endorsing these recommendations now and then maintaining that link to the staff pay award, that will enable us to rebase it going forward. But I completely agree with your point.
Thank you. I think Councillor Andy, you've got a question or a comment?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I too support all the panel's proposals, but in particular, I want to comment on the panel's recommendation to implement a SRA for the Chairman of Licensing. I agree and support the panel's proposals based on the Chairman chairing all the subcommittee meetings besides the 4 licensing committee meetings, which equates to around about 12 meetings a year. A approach I've carried out over the last 2 years. And just to say, the proposals brings in line with all other authorities, so I support that proposal.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Thornton?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I support this proposal, but I just wanted to point out to the Council that last year and this year, the staff pay rise was actually a flat rate amount of money, £1,925 on all pay points. So it wasn't a percentage increase. So this report, the recommendation says that our future increases will be in line with the percentage increase that staff are offered. So the lowest levels of staff on £1,925 got about a 10% last year, but much more senior levels of staff, it was more like 4%. So, you know, I just want to make you aware of that, so because we are voting on this. Thanks.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, you're absolutely right, Helen. Unusually, and we hope that it's an exceptional circumstance, the staff pay award was a lump sum rather than a percentage increase. And what occurred in this case, in concord with other local authorities nearby, and also I think in consultation with the independent panel, councillors were not awarded a flat increase, but were given an approximate a percentage increase. So we got I think the allowances increased by 4% instead of the flat rate increase, because clearly if we'd had the lump sum increase as staff had been awarded, we would have had a very significant percentage increase. So you're absolutely right to highlight that that's always a risk going forward. But I think the sensible, pragmatic solution that we came up with for this year to cap it at a reasonable level whilst recognising the award to staff was the right thing to do, and I would anticipate we would do that going forward.
Thank you. I think would like to come in here?
Mike's just covered it, thank you. I was just going to say the same, that yes, it was a flat rate allowance, but there was some work went on which basically averaged it out, and that was where we got to the 4%.
Thank you. Mike, do you want some sort of summing up and take a vote? Oh, Steve? Sorry, Councillor Bridger. Steve, I didn't notice you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to make a brief comment, which is I don't think we should, maybe I can say this because I'm independent, but we shouldn't shy away from making these sorts of decisions. I think we all know colleagues who've at least considered, standing down due to antisocial hours, the workload, the challenges of juggling the councillor role with other work they might be doing. And if you're, in particular, if you're young and starting a family, you need a decent level of compensation to do this work to at least help you make ends meet. So I think it's something we should be. We should be proud of being councillors, and it's not something we should shy away from.
Thank you. Yes. So, do we want to any sort of summing up, or should we just go to the vote? Right. All those in favour of accepting Councillor Bell's recommendations? Thank you. Anyone against? I can't see who that is. Abstentions?
Madam Chairman, that's clearly carried with one against and a couple of abstentions.
Thank you. Item 18, North Somerset Environmental Company shareholder update. Over to you, Councillor Ashton. Councillor Ashton? Sorry, Ash. Do you only want to talk about it? Sorry. That's it.
It is now? Oh, okay. Thank you, Madam Chairman. So this is an update report, as it says, and it's just for the benefit of perhaps newer councillors, follows the decision we made in 2020 when we decided to bring the provision of our waste services in-house and take it back from BIFA. And it's written from a shareholder perspective because we own, as a council, the company that runs those services now. So it's less about bins and missed collections and more about how we develop a long-term and sustainable business. And I think in doing that and the work that's been happening over the last 2 to 3 years, the goal has been to somehow meld the best of public service ethos with the entrepreneurialism of the private sector. And that really has been very key in terms of what we've been doing. And in doing that, I think as you'll see in the report, the structure of what we've set up, which can seem very dry, is actually very important because what it does, it seems to try and bring in public sector ethos without political interference and perhaps harness the entrepreneurial spirit of the private sector without profiteering. So in that, just as a summary, I was the shareholder and I'm the shareholder representative for the council. I attend quarterly meetings and there are board meetings, and on the board we have 3 non-executive directors in addition to 2 employees who are also directors that drive the long-term business strategy. I think there have been challenges, but I think we've had a good couple of years. I think, we've always had a good record here in North Somerset over many years and many administrations of our recycling rates. They are and remain high and some of the best in the country, and I think we should all be proud of that and the role that we've played in there. I think you'll see from the report, talking of missed collections, the businesses focusing on those, they are coming down. But we've also done other things as well that are more strategic and long term. We've developed a much better relationship with our employees in NSEC, and building relationships with the unions, doing multi-year deals, and we've not seen the strikes from our waste operatives that other councils in the region have seen, and we've worked to improve their terms and conditions. And we've also navigated a lot better compared to some of our peers locally from COVID, and particularly the HGV driver shortages where there were some council collections, but we didn't see the extent of cancellations that we saw elsewhere in the region. I think the challenge there, set out in the report is the setup costs and then perhaps some of the impact of the inflationary environment we're in, as well as the HGV driver shortage led to a deficit. But you'll see there's a plan in there to recover that, and the board are very, very, very focused on that. So I think in summary, we have the structures, we have the processes and people in place, we have challenges, we've come a long way, and there's still some way to go. But I think overall, a good start. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cartman, and I reiterate that it's not an item to talk about your bins not being collected. It's about the governance of NSEC. I think, Councillor Crew, you wanted to come in there?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, just to make some points. Very good report, Ash, and thanks, Amy, for doing it. It highlights the way forward that we always thought we would achieve, but it also points out the things we still need to look into. Overall, it's an excellent way forward. It's as we hoped it was. I was involved in the early days with Steve Bridger in setting this up, and it's working very well. But we do need to look at the things that we can do to help NSEC. We all know, you said no going back, but we all know missed collections cost NSEC money. Now, there are two elements. If you look at the recent reports, there are two elements which cause big hold-ups. One is parked cars. Now, I know discussions are now taking place with our enforcement team to look at changing the public space protection orders and the possibility that we need to look at some road markings. So that's something we're going to look at long term, but something we need to do immediately. I noticed yesterday we missed 8 roads because of overgrown foliage. Now, 2 of those roads, as Councillor Solomon may know, where he keeps getting the same complaints from the same gentleman, is one of those very roads. And I think that's something we can do, because the more we can reduce collections, the more it helps NSEC in their costs. But I
think that's over to
support
you.
the report.
Just a brief answer to that one with the overgrown foliage. There is a team of people that have to get out there and trim, but as you know, Peter, it's a huge area to cover and our resources aren't bottomless, and we do try to get to the very severe ones as soon as possible. But yeah, we can improve, and I will work with the team to see how we can improve getting areas where they're not getting collections due to this overgrown foliage, to make sure that they are cut back.
Thank you. So this item is for noting. Can't see any more questions or comments, so the item is noted. Thank you very much. Catherine, Councillor Gibbons, I think we've got a brief parenting report here.
Yes, it is very brief, but before I speak to it, I just want to note that it was prepared, of course, by Sheila Smith, and I just want to thank her personally for everything she's done over the years for North Somerset, especially for our children in care. And it's with sadness, this is probably your last corporate parenting report for me. So thank you for everything. Yes, I'm assuming, as I'm sure you're all very dedicated corporate parents, that you have read this report, and that those of you who are new to the council will have undertaken the training and you fully understand your role as a corporate parent. I mean, I know that for some people, myself included when I was first elected, it came as a surprise that I had this obligation. And for those of you who have children, it's another element to your family to think about those children that we have in care as your children, and everything you do for them. You think, would it be good enough for my children? Is that what I would want for them? Those of you who haven't got children at the moment, well, actually you do have children. So this is a way of thinking about what's important to a young person and what way you can make a difference to their life. I know Councillor Davis opposite was with me at the Fun Day for our foster families and children. And I think we'd both agree it's wonderful to see the difference that our foster families make to young people's lives, and also how they appreciate our involvement with them and with the young people. So, as you've seen in this brief report, you've had it gives you an overview of what your responsibilities are as a corporate parent. I won't read through it because I know you've read the details. We have a regular meeting of the corporate parenting panel, which I, by default, of my role as the lead member, I chair or facilitate, because I don't think of it as a formal board in the sense of a scrutiny panel. And we meet 6 times a year. Alternately, the young people attend and talk to us very openly and very frankly about their feelings on a number of topics that they usually choose. So most recently, we had a panel meeting where they discussed their feelings about their identity, about their access to their records, their personal story, the story work about their lives. And I know that councillors who were there found it quite moving and quite a revelation to understand how people feel and what it means to be in care. So what I'm saying really is that you will have received the papers. I ask that they go to all councillors. The next meeting isn't a meeting with the young people, but it's on the 18th of July. And I would encourage anyone who is interested to find out what we do for our children and who wants to get an experience of the corporate parenting panel to come along. Notify us first, because it would be great to have all councillors there, but we might need a larger room. And just get involved, because it's really important. It's a statutory obligation I have, and it's also one that you all have as elected councillors. And indeed, the council itself and officers are corporate parents. We have done a great deal of good work over the past 4 years, and I know that with the new council and newly elected members, we'll do even better work. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine. So 18th of July in your diaries, please.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Have you got somebody else? It was just a quick question for the leader to update us on the fire alarm as we were talking about children.
No. Over to Councillor Clayton.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Gibbons, for your report. Recently, obviously, we've got a new elected council, and I went along to the corporate parenting briefing for new councillors, and it was reported back that last term's chairman held a gathering at the Winter Gardens for the carnival. This is a yearly thing that the chairman does for council, and the last chairman kindly donated the spots that councillors didn't attend to children and foster parents. I would strongly encourage that this will be the way forward, because I, for one, will not be attending the carnival, because I feel very strongly about this, that I, will stand out with the people of Weston out in the cold rather than cozying up in the Winter Gardens in the warm with food and drink. So most definitely, I would like my place to go to another foster parent and child.
Thank you, Councillor Clayton.
Can I just come back?
Yes, of course.
Yes, that is already in the plan, that foster families will be offered those opportunities. And it was much enjoyed, I have to say. I went along to be with them, and it was great. Yeah.
Yes, it was really good. Thank you.
Wasn't it?
Sorry, over to you, Councillor Solomon. He's not listening. Did you have a question? No. Thank
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that report, which I read with great interest. And I too attended that briefing session for new councillors, which was very interesting and very moving as well. And having read your report, I noticed that there was a specific comment in there also about how, like very many young people, they feel quite strongly about climate change, and they have serious concerns about this. And I wondered if there is ever an opportunity for us to perhaps organise an event where you would like me or other councillors, but to come and talk to them about that specifically. I would be very happy to do that.
Catherine?
Well, I would certainly like you to come along to the Youth Parliament, which I hope, once I've liaised with our young director, we'll be taking off again in the next term, so it will be September onwards. And the members in the last Youth Parliament had expressed an interest in having a session that specifically addressed that issue. But the subjects that they talk about are decided by the young people themselves. So, we can certainly make a steer, But certainly, if you want to come along to the next corporate parenting panel where young people are there, and we can see if that's a subject that they want to talk about, but I think it would certainly, it comes up in a lot of things that they talk to us about, because you're right, they are concerned.
Thank you.
I'd be delighted, thank you.
Oh, stop turning it off. Okay, on to item 20. Councillor Payne-Robert presented a report on the Avon Fire Authority. To be noted, are there any questions, comments? No. Thank you then, Robert. We note the report. Councillor Crew, Peter, Avon and Somerset Police and Crime Panel, oral report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, as you would expect, the main topic of the last meeting was the police constable's, the Chief Constable's comment about Avon and Somerset being institutionally racist. Now, this was relevant to the Macpherson view on what that meant. But the PCC and the Chief Constable question, they are setting up a review panel to go through this and sort it out over the next couple of years, and also calling an independent review panel to look at it. It was also the first meeting of the Chamber Somerset, because now we're only 5 authorities as opposed to 9, so the number of new members. The other topics we covered was Operation Bluestone, which is going quite well, which is the action taken against violence against women and girls, and they've had some success on that one. And also Operation Scorpion, where they have actually dealt with 11,000 drug actions where they removed drugs from the streets. Other than that, Chairman, it was just a normal update of the meeting on other internal matters. But as we've asked for a report back, I also raised the point that we are due to be fully staffed this month, actually, and I've asked the question, as promised, the 2 neighbourhood teams for North Somerset, one in the north and one in the south, consisting of 9 officers and a sergeant, which supplements the police force on the ground, should be fully implemented. At the moment, we have 5 in each, as opposed to the full establishment. So I've asked that, as we agreed to increase the contribution from the ratepayer last year by 50%, we want to see some return on that. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Keep pushing for that at your meetings. Keep pushing for that. Any comments, questions? Catherine.
Thank you, Councillor Crewe, for that. I just wanted to ask if you have or will have for us any more detailed information about what sort of work is going to, or is being done, or is going to be done to address the issues of racism within the police. Because I often speak to various communities, and the perception of institutional racism is very strongly embedded and is a serious issue. Certain communities are very fearful of engaging with the police. So I think they would like to know precisely what sort of work is being done within the force and who is running the training courses that obviously members of the force may need to have in order to counter this perception.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Yes, that will be a report to the next police panel. And obviously that one will be, because we've plenty of time, will be a written report to the council.
That sounds good. Thank you. A written report would be good. Yes, over to you.
Can I just make a comment about the institutional racism? The Police Federation have brought to light that that's per Sarah Crewe, the Chief Constable's personal opinion, rather than an outright opinion of the force. I was a police officer for over 20 years in Bristol. I joined up with Sarah Crewe. And most officers are highly insulted, feel very strongly, and made representations to the Police Federation in relation to her comments. And it's not really agreed that these comments are substantive.
So I think we wait to read and hear more about that, perhaps in the future. Thank you very much. Wow, West of England Combined Authority, none. Urgent business. None. Thank you all for being so efficient and precise and to the point. And have a good summer. And go to all your beer festivals.